If you live in an older home like I do, then you probably have something like this. It's an old bedroom closet, and it's seen better days. So today, I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks on how to repair the walls on something like this, and then we're gonna build a nice modular cabinet and cubby unit and some new shelving. Will look a million times better than this crap. All right, now the first thing we're gonna do, get rid of these drywall anchors. Now these are pretty simple. We're just gonna take a pair of pliers and a screwdriver with a rounded tip on the end, and you're literally just gonna pull the drywall plug out of the wall. We're just gonna take our screwdriver, and you're just gonna sort of push and roll it around on where the plug was and create a divot where the hole is. That just gives us somewhere to put our drywall mud later. Now we can remove the cleats from the wall, and if yours are anything like mine, there might be something like 25 coats of paint on them, so we're gonna have to score that. There could also be some caulking back there as well, and when we take them off the wall, we don't want to do any more damage to the walls than has already been done. So just go ahead and score everything with a good sharp knife. From there, we're going to be using a flat, wide pry bar to slowly work our way underneath the cleat, and I'm kind of working my way all the way around, slowly pulling it up as I go, because you don't really just want to shove it under there and just rip it off, because you'll push the crowbar right through the drywall. Ask me how I know. Okay, with the cleats out of our way, now we can start working on knocking down the high spots of the wall and really start prepping and smoothing them out. So first of all of the nail holes from the cleats, I'm gonna go ahead and push them back inside. There might be some paper sticking up. And then I'm gonna go around and feel the entire wall with one hand and take an 1.5-inch wide putty knife and start scraping off any debris that's been painted over time and time again. As well as anywhere that something was stuck to the wall, I'm going to scrape off that high paint ridge as well, and this is really our first step to knocking down the high spots and smoothing out these walls. Okay, we got all of our high spots knocked down and smoothed out, but we still have some damaged areas that are too low, so now we have to bring the low spots back up. In order to do that, we're just going to take some drywall mud and literally just smear a thin coat over the whole thing. So, let's get the smearing. When applying the drywall mud, you'll notice that I'm kind of pulling from the top down. We don't need a lot of buildup here, and we don't need to cover as much as possible, just filling in the low spots. So I'm kind of pushing hard at the top, letting up in the center, and pushing harder again towards the bottom. And this just feathers the ends out, makes it a lot easier to sand later. And I'm basically covering anywhere where there's damage or a drywall anchor, anything that needs to be repaired. Whew. Jesus, that was loud. Anyway, so the mud we just put on the walls, that's going to take about 24 hours to dry or so. So now is the perfect time to get started on our closet organizer. And that is literally going to be nothing more than a box with some cubbies inside of it. We're going to keep it simple. Then I've also got some cleats here, or some wood that's going to make up cleats. Got some 1x2s, 1x3s, and 1x4s. And these are just going to be holding up plywood shelves on the wall, as well as the cubbies themselves. Now my cubbies I'm making out of some 3/4 inch birch plywood, and they're going to be about 16 inches deep overall and about 4 feet tall, and this one here is going to be about 2 feet wide. Now I've also made a second set for a different closet that was the same dimensions, except I've only made it 1 foot wide, and then I paired it with a second one that was 1.5 feet wide, and then I screwed the two of them together and put them in. So you can do kind of any combo you want. This is more like a modular style. I'm also edge banding all of the exposed edges that are going to face up, down, or forward. Anything against the wall, I'm not edge banding. When it comes to the assembly of these boxes, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Pocket holes would obviously be quick and simple, but you're going to have a bunch of holes to fill, and I don't really want to deal with that. I don't really want to see them either. So for myself, I'm just going to glue and clamp the entire thing together, and I'm going to countersink some screws, 1.5 inch long screws, in through the ends into each shelf, and then I'm just going to plug those screw holes later on with some drywall spackle and sand everything smooth. When it comes to figuring out even spacing for all your shelves, it's actually pretty simple. You're going to measure the entire inner dimension of your box, and then the thickness of all of your shelves, you're going to subtract that from that measurement. Then divide that by the amount of cubby openings that you want to have, and what you're left with is the exact size of all the openings that you need. Now the box itself is going to be held on the wall with a 1x3 cleat, and I'm going to have one on the top as well as the bottom of the box. Then the shelf right beside it where the closet hanger is going to go, that is going to be a 1x4 cleat, and the shelf that's going to go full width above the box itself is going to be a 1x2 cleat. To add at least a little bit of visual interest to what's going to be an otherwise boring wall cleat, I'm going to just measure up a smidge. That's a measurement, right? On all of the ends of the cleats. I'm going to whack them off at a 45-degree angle. Then with my 45-degree chamfer bit loaded up in the router, I'm just going to do a little bit of detail work on them to dress them up. The wall cleats, however, I don't want the router to go all the way to the end, so I'm marking a stop and start point with one of the side cleats itself. Make sure when you do this router work though, you keep in mind that you need a right and left side. It's super easy to make two lefts or two rights. Again, ask me how I know. Now we can make the upper full width shelf. Now this one I'm just using the wall cleat itself to reference the length, and this shelf is only going to be 12 inches deep, and that's just going to make it a lot easier to get things up on there, because if it was a full 16 inches deep I wouldn't have enough room above the door to get things in and out of there. And I'm adding a support cleat on the very front of it as well to prevent sagging over time. All right, everything is built and ready for finish. Now, I'm just giving everything a quick wipe down with just nothing more than a blue shop rag, slightly dampened with water. Now I've got my box here, I've got all my cleats for the wall, and I've got the shelf that's going to extend from the box into the corner just over here. And I've also got the entire upper shelf that's going to go from wall to wall over there as well. Now I'm going to be painting this entire thing, but if you're going to want to, say, stain it, you can stain it and clear coat it. That's entirely up to you. If you do plan on painting it, you're obviously going to need a couple of coats, but the paint that you're going to want to use ideally is going to be something like an enamel paint or a melamine paint. Those are going to be much more durable than just the basic wall paint. Now wall paint will work, just be aware that it's going to show marks a little bit quicker and it might not be quite as durable going forward. Okie dokie, with that paint drying, now we're back upstairs in our closet and we can sand our drywall mud. Now, this room is finished out. I've got carpet down here, my editing computer is right behind the camera, and you could use just a normal sanding sponge. The downside to this is there's gonna be dust everywhere, and that's no good. So what we're gonna use is something like this. Now this is basically a drywall sander that's using a sanding screen, and that screen has holes, obviously, it's a screen. It gets sucked down into here. It's attached to a vacuum hose, which is going to my shop vac. On the shop vac, I've got a dust filter as well as a dust bag. So there shouldn't be any really dust floating around the room. This thing's like 90–95% efficient. It gets most of it. And because it sucks all the dust up, it doesn't really clog. It's super fast. So now we just got to sand everything, wipe the walls down, then we can paint, and then inspect the walls, touch up anything that needs to be touched up, then go back, paint the other stuff, paint this, jump around. You get the idea. All right, everything is finished and it is looking worlds better than when we started. Now we need to start getting this guy hooked up to the wall. Now it is pretty heavy. You might want a second set of hands to get this guy up into place. And to fasten it to the wall, we're going to be using these. Now these are 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. Now the reason I'm using these is they're self-tapping. In other words, they shouldn't split my cleat when I drill through them into the wall. And they're pan-headed, which means they kind of have a washer on the end. It'll really end up sucking this unit to the wall. Now we're drilling them to the studs. Now this drywall's got to be fastened to something, so there should be wood behind each side in the corner. So once we get the cabinet up into place, we'll fire a screw into the corner about as tight as we can get it into the corner, and then that'll be good. And then from there, we're going to come across, find a stud. We're going to fire another screw into that stud. And the cleats themselves are going to get brad nailed to the wall with some 2-inch brad nails into all the studs. Then we're going to come back and refinish those out and they'll be beautiful and we can just set our shelves on top. When I was nailing on my side cleats here, all of the sides, there wasn't actually a stud that I was nailing into with these front nails. So the nails were basically just holding as a clamp to stop it from sagging, and the glue is going to end up doing the majority of the holding over time. Here, I also just used some 1.25-inch screws, and you'll notice that first one I put in, I ended up splitting the board a little bit. Now, that's not a big deal. I just came back, shoved some wood glue in there, let it dry, and then when I came back and painted my nail holes later, I painted over that, and you can't even tell. But that was my fault. I put the screw too close to the end of the board, and I didn't pre-drill. I was a little impatient. Once all the cleats are up, we can fill our nail holes with the same drywall spackle we used before, just a little bit on your finger and push it in the hole, and then sand it smooth with a little sanding sponge. This isn't going to create a whole lot of dust. Then we can come back with the exact same paint we used to paint the cleats to begin with and touch up all of our sanding marks. All right, hold up. I just want to jump in here real quick and thank you guys for watching. I really honestly do appreciate it. And I set a pretty lofty goal this year. I said we were going to fill this guy in every single video, and that's what we're going to do. And now we're right about here. So I obviously need your guys' help in this journey. If you guys like the video, do all the things down below. I would really appreciate it. If you guys know somebody that might like the video, obviously send it off to them because they might become a sub too. Otherwise, guys, again, thank you very much. And now let's go see what we built.